This is MC Fireside Chats, a weekly show devoted to the outdoor hospitality industry, hosted by Brian Searl and Cara Csizmadia. You'll hear from special guests that focus on topics to help your business succeed, all backed by Modern Campground, the most innovative news source in the industry.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of MC Fireside Chats. My name is Brian Searl with Insider Perks here, as always, with Cara Csizmadia from the Canadian Camping and RV Council. I'm outside. It's blue skies. It's spring. It's almost time for camping season. No idea back here if my head is cut off or you can see me correctly, but we're going to go for it anyway. We're going to make it happen because it is beautiful and super excited for camping season, as everyone else is too, up here in Calgary, Alberta. So what do we got going on today? First of all, this is our regular campground owner show, and we have no campground owners on it. It's so amazing. We're pioneering and blazing the path here with innovations at Modern Campground. But hopefully we'll be joined by Ryan Crots from Sun Outdoors. He's running a few minutes late. And then we're just kind of doing some shuffle work around after the Canadian Outdoor Hospitality Conference at Expo. Some people were on spring break. People were, sick and had some scheduling conflicts and things like that. So we're just moving some pieces around. And next month we'll have some campground owners back on the show with you already. We already have some commitments and things like that. But today, before we dive in, Cara, we have to talk about the Canadian Outdoor Hospitality Conference and Expo last week. How did it go?
Yeah, thanks. I think overall feedback has been incredibly good. We had tons of sessions and education and all kinds of networking and connections happen during those 3 days last week. And our members, CCRVC members, have been reaching out to me to say thank you and how much they appreciate the efforts on behalf of both Brian and myself, as well as our speakers and sponsors like Joe. Overall it was really, really good. We're excited already, I think, for 2023 and some fundamental shifts to the format of that, as we hopefully hope and pray that we are going to be in person next year. That was one of the biggest hurdles, I think, is virtual is really, really great for some folks and others aren't such a big fan. And so I think that stuff really comes out in those post-event surveys that we send out to everyone.
So mental note here, and number one, my first mental note is I need a better speaker on my laptop, because I could kind of hear what you're saying, but all the way back here I can't really. So I'm gonna have to hook up a Bluetooth speaker next time we do this outside. But secondary, and I apologize if I cut somebody off, because I literally am struggling to hear. I'm gonna move closer in a second. But specifically from an exhibitor standpoint, right? Because I was there, I was the sponsor, was Insider Perks and as Modern Campground. I, as the MC of the event and teaching all the courses and doing all the things, didn't have time to literally look at my booth at all. I had a couple people who were in there staffing and chatting, but I still picked up 3 new clients from it. So I'm super excited for that, to continue our expansion into Canada and things like that. But I will say, there's this, and I'm going to call out not anybody specifically here, but just this industry in general, right? There's this hesitation about virtual, and nobody wants to be there. We all want to be back in person, handshaking, eye contact, hybrid events, both options, right? Sure. But I will tell you that despite the virtual conference having that kind of stereotype, you vendors who didn't participate and did last year really missed out, because we had some great conversations, networking, and people browsing the booths, and some sessions and education, and just I can't even tell you how much business I would have picked up had I actually been paying attention to our booths and had time. So I was super excited about it, Cara.
Yeah, I think our growth in attendance really showcases the interest specific to the event. We had quite a few more attendees than we had last year. So that is a great sign. I hope that that's a good trajectory set for the future, specific to the conference, regardless of whether it goes in person or hybrid or virtual only or whatever happens. I think we'll continue to have interest. I want to welcome Ryan. He's here. He was a little
Ryan's
behind.
Here?
He was in the backstage, but he's here. He's here. Welcome.
Welcome, Ryan. Can you still see me in this way? Like, I feel like I still can't see my laptop. This is terrible. I got to get like an outdoor screen. Does it look good, or am I cut off? Do I need to scratch down?
I wouldn't say looks good, but we can see you.
Well, it never looks good. Yeah, I mean, I guess that is kind of a silly question because we both.
If you move the camera down just a little bit and the logo covers you up, it'd be perfect.
Yeah, perfect.
Okay. Anyway, super excited to welcome Ryan here. Ryan, you just missed the breaking news. We're doing a campground owner focused show with no campground owners. It's amazing. We're pioneering and leading the industry.
He ruined it.
Well, no, Ryan didn't ruin it because Ryan is a manager. So technically, we still are 100% on track here. But Cara, were you finishing up about the conference? I'm so sorry if I cut you off by mistake.
No worries at all. I really just need to say another round of thank yous, specifically to our sponsors, namely CampSpot, who came in as title yet again this year. Their support is so valuable to the association. But we certainly had support from, I believe in total 19 other industry suppliers who came to the table and supported the event specifically. But I think it's important to note that support lasts the association through the year and enables us to do some great stuff specifically for our members, and that's obviously so vital to the association and its success. So I appreciate all of the sponsors who showed up and gave their time, and of course, dozens of speakers who brought their expertise to the table. And of course, also all of our attendees. We had some really great, really engaging conversations and discussions, lots of fun networking sessions, and even hung out in the networking lounges at night and had a couple drinks and all that. So, it was a great 3 days. I think it sets a great tone for jumping into camping season. Part of why we're missing a couple of our campground owner guests today too, I think, is because they're really prepping. We're weeks out from opening parks and starting to welcome guests and things like that. So it's an exciting time right now, and the conference really set the stage for kicking the season off on a great foot.
Well, and I'll say I was an exhibitor for the conference this past week, and it went great. We've done a lot of conferences in person and as well as online, and this conference by far is the one that we get the most value out of that is online. And so a lot more conversation with people, a lot more interactions with attendees. Being a sponsor, that's what we're looking for typically, and also other people in the industry. At the lounge mini nights, it's Cara and Brian and Joss and myself and maybe a couple others, and not always owners and campground owners, but it's just us kind of meeting with other people that we normally don't get to see and have a good time. So I enjoy it.
Well, and that's the thing, right, Joe? Like I get the hesitation from some of the vendors and things like that to participate. And I understand that in some ways I'm calling them out right here, not by name, but in front of them. And I understand your hesitation and the smoke behind me, and hopefully nothing's on fire. It's amazing. This little wood chipper stove I got going. But, I understand their hesitation because things in the past weren't as great. Like you said, this is the best online one you've been to. There have been some terrible ones, right? But ultimately, it's about getting out. It's about supporting your association, networking with people. And to be perfectly honest, I got business from it. And I'm really looking forward to like this ongoing partnership with CCRVC as they continue to innovate, embrace digital, hybrid, and in-person all at once, because that's the future. The future absolutely is still in person. But you can only go in person so many times with travel expenses and booths and hauling things around and all that. And if you can stay connected throughout the rest of the year with virtual and have the best of both worlds, I mean, it is the future. So we've got to figure out a way to embrace it, not just from a owner standpoint and a me standpoint and a vendor standpoint, but I think CCRVC is on the right path here to trying to make it as valuable as possible in a virtual setting for people like you, Joe, and me.
Yeah.
So
I say, Brian, it's even harder to get your booth from place to place when you leave it in somebody else's basement for 2 years.
I know. So for those of you who don't know, like I had this huge booth that I bought in like January of 2020 or the end of 2019, and I spent like $5,000 on it. And then Joe was going to bring it, like, because I was flying everywhere. Joe was going to bring it to me via car, and then the pandemic hit, and it's been in Joe's basement ever since. So I'm
That's
not sure why I haven't gotten a bill for storage fees, but
Pretty soon I'm just confiscating the TV, I'm pretty sure.
is there a TV in there?
Oh yeah.
take the TV.
Oh yeah,
I
why
don't
wouldn't there
care.
be?
I forgot.
And
That's
floor
right,
pan,
and the
there's a
little
flooring
hole.
set up. That might be mine too.
So anyway, Ryan, what's new from your standpoint? Oh, wait. Before you answer that, one more thing about sponsorship before we go. Nothing related to the CCRVC conference, but we are accepting sponsorships for this show starting in April. We have only 4 slots available, -1, -2, -3. So there's only 1 left. We're going to have 1 sponsor per episode where you can air a video at the beginning. We'll mention you, talk about your product and service, read a script, those kinds of things. There's only 4 available, 1 each episode, and we've already sold 3. So if you're interested, you probably should reach out to us soon. Ryan, take it away, sir. What's new with you in your world?
Oh man, there's not enough time to tell you what's new in my world.
Does it have to do with the Pistons and how they're not as good as the Cavs, or?
We will be converting, now it's public knowledge, so we will be converting Petoskey KOA into Jellystone Petoskey Yogi Bear.
Nice.
Wow.
Yep.
Okay.
That decision was made, I think, 10 or 15 days ago, something like that. And we have 30 days to get everything transitioned over. So I've been pretty busy getting everything kind of lined up from a different state. But it's been good. I don't know anything about Yogi Bear, so I'm excited to learn a whole new brand. But yeah, that's been my week. So
And you still have time to come here.
So
yeah.
Tell us, give us a little bit of an inside peek into and obviously I know some things are proprietary, you can't share everything, right? But give us a little peek into what happens as soon as you hear this news from because we've dealt with those people before. We've had clients who have transitioned from KOA to Jellystone or whatever to independent or independent to KOA or Yogi. What goes through your mind as soon as you hear that? And then what are some of the first things you do as an owner manager?
Yeah. Panic, I believe, would be the first step. You about lose your mind. It's weird because everything that I've ever known has been KOA or Sun Outdoors and so to kind of step out of that comfort zone and okay, I think you chase this bear around with pots and pans in the morning and wake him up. And he comes out of a bear den and okay, there's a whole bunch of things that you kind of need to learn. And so, ordering costumes and changing out all of your signs and, how you're going to set up your store, everything changes. So that's kind of where I'm at, is in the weird limbo stage of, okay, here we go. Let's figure this all out. So are you building a smoke machine? What's going on over there?
I think
Well, that's why I'm trying to put more wood pellets in it. It's a wood stove. So when I first got it, I got these barbecue pellets that I didn't know were the wrong ones because that's all they had at Canadian Tire, which is our little store up here, kind of like a big Walmart.
I feel like we're at a camping trip.
Yeah, so it's not really cold enough to burn it, but I'm trying to get rid of them.
I think Brian's hiring, Ryan, if you're looking to
Yeah,
manage his new campground.
Stoking his fire.
Yeah.
Oh,
Well,
boy.
what you were just saying, Ryan, we have a few customers that have, either left a major brand or switched to one. And, the things that you never even think about that have to be done so quickly, like changing your guest guides, changing all your branding colors, especially going from one major brand to another major brand, those colors have to be gone because you can't be using those anymore. And then updating your website, anything you hand out, any web, all of the different listings you have across the internet need to be changed, but then the old searches need to still come and find you. And it's kind of an unlimited amount of work to do.
It's a super interesting thing, right? So we had a, I'm trying to remember, we had a KOA who dropped the franchise, and obviously I'm not going to say where, but KOA dropped the franchise, and it's really interesting how much of that work that there is to do that you don't think about. We had to go to the Google My Business listing and scrub all the pictures, that had any kind of KOA symbolage in it. We've done that before with Yogis. Obviously, instantly, as soon as you flip that switch, you're still called a KOA or a Yogi or whatever, or your independent park if you're going to one of these franchises all over the internet. And you have to figure out a way to quickly change that and set guest expectations while also, like, you've got a loyal base who have known you for years as this one thing. And how do you communicate that you're still the same place? You just don't have the colors or the bear or whatever, right?
Yeah, I was
so
going to
really
ask that.
interesting.
What's the strategy, Ryan, to like communicating that to your return guests and like fielding their concerns or questions around the shift and how it will impact them?
I was a little concerned you were going to actually ask me that question. So, no. So, you know, obviously we're run by a much bigger company. So they are kind of taking responsibility for a majority of that. You know, we did send out an email like it's going to be the same place, and you know, it's signed by the manager, and you know, I will be going back, and you know, the people who ran it will still be there. But it's hard because you know things you're not even thinking about is your 800 number is owned by KOA, so you lose that. And you know, the only way I know how to get to our sitemap is petoskeykoa.com. And so how do you tell the guest, you know, it's a new website? You know, I don't know. I don't know if there is a perfect way because, you know, email blast is most of the time the easiest way, but I would say 90% of those go to spam. You know, Facebook, you post it on Facebook, you're about to get blasted because it's been Petoskey KOA for 32 years. What in the world? But, you know, Facebook does have a huge reach. And so, you know, that's a good way of doing it. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know all the answers yet. And, you know, short of calling everybody on your list, which is almost impossible. You know, I think it's a lot of, you kind of got to go old school and get, you know, newspaper ads out there, and which blows my mind that they still do that. But like
newspaper ads,
and like you're trying to hit an entire like layer of general, like your newspaper ads, people still read those, and I'm like, I didn't realize that. And then like email blast, that's like the business guy, and you know, Facebook, that's the moms looking at, you know, how do you go after a completely different people that you've never had staying at your property before. So we don't really have all the answers yet, but you know, it's pretty fresh. It just kind of happened, and we're just going to keep working through it until figure out what the right answer is.
Well, there's no better time to do it than 1 month before you open. So no, but
from a different
in reality, though, that like you bring up a very interesting question though, because there are answers to these things, right? Not perfect answers, but what we've seen, or at least what we've Insider Perks have seen in the marketing that we've done and the branding switches over the pandemic, is that actually customer loyalty has kind of declined over the pandemic in some areas, not all the places. But as more people, especially now, who knows what's going to happen with loyalty with inflation, right? As you stay closer to home or change your travel plans or adjust them and things like that. And so what we found kind of the best way to do this is there's two segments of your park owners. And I'm sorry, I have an echo. That's why I paused there for a second. There's two segments of your park people who come to your campground. One is the seasonals, which obviously need much more communication and hand-holding and insurances when you're doing any kind of a brand change. But then there's the overnight people who, unless the Petoskey KOA is the only place that they've been going for 32 years, chances are that they've either seen other Jellystones or other independent parks or whatever, and so they're not necessarily as concerned as your seasonals would. So in many cases, it's just like a whitewash. Get rid of the KOA and the fact that you were a KOA as fast as you humanly can, everywhere you possibly can, so that everybody can still get to your new website, and then to top, formerly known as Petoskey KOA, but just immediately reset everybody's expectation, and they'll forget really quickly.
Yeah. Sorry to blow up your guys' day. That was
that's a great conversation, right? Like it's honestly something that we've never had on the show before, but it's so important from a not just the switching franchises standpoint, or you know, embracing a franchise if you're going from independent to a KOA or to a Yogi for all those benefits that they offer, but it's important from a branding perspective to think about these things as an owner when you're knee deep in everything with building sewer pipes and laying wires and opening your store and stocking it and worrying about supply chains and inflation and the consumer. Like, it's just one more thing that you have to be cognizant of, and maybe we don't talk about it enough.
Yeah.
Well, and things aren't as strict when, you know, you have a single owner moving and just rebranding their property, which happens, you know, that happens as well. and things aren't as strict, but you notice that as a consumer, you notice that they forget about things at times. And so they'll have one page on their website somewhere that might have their old branding or an old icon or something like that. And again, if you're coming from one of the big brands, it's a little more strict, right? You got to move those. If somebody sees them, you get in trouble, you're going to get a letter about it. But when you're even doing your own branding, it just causes confusion. And so it's kind of good to have someone make you think about those processes at just a random time and think you need to hit the website, all the branding and go through everything with a fine-tooth comb.
Yeah. It fascinates me to this day. And again, admittedly, like I'm a super big geek, as everybody knows. But it fascinates to me to this day how much people, and this goes for me outside of like thousands of things outside of marketing too, right? Like you don't know what you don't know. And so even when we were giving sessions at the CCRBC conference, doing like a deep dive into Google Ads and what can be done on your website with automation, there's still this mindset of, and it's not wrong, like you can't know everything. There's nothing, I'm not criticizing anybody here, but there's still this mindset of my website is just what it looks like to the public. And what it does behind the scenes doesn't matter. And so people don't realize that you can very quickly, like I remember we were talking about Verde Ranch RV Resort. One of our clients in Arizona who's owned by CRR Lifestyle, and we were talking about like you can pull up Google Analytics 4 and see how much every single visitor to your website is worth, and how much the average person pays on CampSpot or whatever they're using, CampSpot in this case, when they check out. And all of a sudden, there's a number right in front of you that shows, well, look, I'm earning 150 times more than I thought was expensive for me to pay that website designer to do my website. Because
it transforms your website into a tool and uses all the data that you've been collecting all that time to just enhance your business value. It's incredibly smart to utilize it.
Anyway, what else we got? I don't want to talk about marketing because that's my thing. Like I feel like I'm just going to hijack the show if I do things like that. I never talk about myself. So what else is new?
Well, I think we could touch on your fancy resources at Modern Campground. Are we going to do that?
Well, we will. Like I will. We can do that now if you really want to. But like I'm trying. Like it's springtime, right? So what's on the mind? Like obviously, there's a lot on your mind, Ryan, switching from Yogi to KOA or KOA to Yogi. Sorry. See, I already messed it up, and I just literally talked about it 5 minutes ago. But what's on the minds, and maybe Joe, you can kind of chime in with this too, because you're doing a lot of work with campgrounds and updating your apps and things like that. But what's on the minds of park owners in March? In general, first off, and then secondarily, with this inflation and gas prices and all the things.
Yeah. So I think, there's a lot that goes into that. So, you're trying to button up all your big projects. So, we're going through 2 phases of expansion at the exact same time. So adding 67 RV sites and 20 vacation rentals and 2 crazy deluxe pull-throughs. So, I have dozers cutting across property right now and ripping up asphalt. And, you've got a pretty tight window to lay new asphalt down before the campground opens and, kind of worrying about that and like, okay. And then, you get the benefit of like, okay, we're adding 20 vacation rentals. So how are we going to staff that? And, right now you're in peak hiring season, trying to get your team assembled and store orders. Like you got to start restocking your store. Like this is go time. The anxiety is high. As an operator, as a manager, you're gearing up for what we call war. Like, here we go. Like, obviously bad timing right now, but, setting up your store and remodeling, everything has to happen before you open because it's a lot easier before guests get there. So, we're already starting kind of down that road with everything. We could probably spend 3 days talking about each one of those things.
Is it different? And you just mentioned your store specifically, right? We've heard a lot about supply chain issues and ordering in advance. Have you run into a lot of those difficulties?
Yeah, I think everybody orders from Wilcor. I think that's probably the most shopped at store for campgrounds. And I think I got 1/3 of what I ordered. So everything is back ordered. And, what are you going to do? You do what you have, and that's what you're going to have in their store. So, and it's hard because even you'd think it'd get better in July and August, and your reorders, and you're ordering like, okay, I'm going to get charcoal and lighter fluid, but you can only get it on the first truck. And so you can't get it later. And then, your store goes pretty bare in July because, they're just as busy as we are and trying to keep up with demand. And, you want to have this store that's perfectly set up and beautiful. And when you're making these orders, you're kind of in your head going, okay, I'm going to put this display here. And then I'm going to build, a rack here for Quick Wicks and marshmallows and marshmallow sticks. And then when nothing shows up, you're like, all right, we're going to do chairs here. And I'm going to put a TV over here, I guess. And, it kind of changes the game for you. And you don't have a ton of time because you only got, I think we're 36 days from opening or something like that. Maybe a little bit more, but just putting that on my radar. And, we don't have our staff yet. So it's, manager, assistant manager, maintenance manager. And so there's 3 of us to kind of go through all these projects and say, okay, which ones are important? Which ones, you almost have to, you sit in a crouch position going, please let this go well. And you're going to have to find a whiteboard and write down like, this is the most important. Got to have this one. And this one's the not most important. Because I think everyone always assumes that opening day, which for us is May 6th, is everything has to be perfect. And yes, as an operator, I want it to be perfect on May 6th, but realistically, just have it done by Labor Day or Memorial Day, whatever one comes first. And you're just like, please, just you're never done. There's always something coming next. So.
Well, the good thing with that is you now have room already built in for you to add some stuffed animals, right? So you're going to need to find room for them anyway. So
exactly. Yeah. Lots of them.
From our standpoint, it's kind of the same thing. We always encourage our customers right around this time period to start sending out some push notifications to give out like pictures, images of things they've done in their off season, to start pulling in some more reservations earlier, get people thinking about their season a little sooner. If you send them a nudge and they go and book. And so we'll encourage them to send a picture of the new playground they built in the off season with a book now button right underneath it where they can go out and, hopefully start camping a little earlier. Outside of that, what we see is right now is a lot of times where we had a few potential clients that were not sure, and the season's coming and it's decision time. So it's either yay or nay in the next couple weeks, because if it gets too far along, we'll still have some customers convert, but they're running out of time that they actually have, cycles to put things together for their apps. So it normally takes about 2 weeks, but they just need a little bit of time for it.
It's not sunny enough on my deck. I had to move. Sorry. Just beautiful. I need a little bit of a tan up here. I've been inside all winter. So,
Yogi Bear.
It's a lot easier to see now.
So I'm curious, Ryan, is there, from an owner, and this is probably an ignorant question because I've never owned a campground, right? But are there alternatives to Wilcor and to other large supply chains? Like if you raise your prices, can you just go buy charcoal at Walmart and cover the expense, or?
Yeah, you can. And that's kind of where we're going, that route. But a lot of the stuff, if you've ever been in the Wilcor showroom, it's so much fun. You walk around and eat candy and do all this fun stuff. And so you're like, oh man, I want to help these people. And, a lot of the stuff comes from the same place. So whether it's Rhode Island Novelties or Wilcor or whatever it is, they're all struggling with the same stuff. And it kind of gives us a cool opportunity that even though we're a little short on the merchandise from Wilcor, it almost makes you, one of the things we were going to do in our store and we still are going to try is kind of build a local section where it's, buying the local maple syrup, the local, whatever it's going to be, and doing a, made in Petoskey region. And people are willing to spend more for it because they're like, this is so cool. It's tapped from the trees up here. So it kind of gives you a cool opportunity to add new things to your store instead of always having, the bike lights and the, batteries and all that stuff, where they can go to the grocery store and get that because they have better supply chains through there.
So we had this conversation in one of the sessions at the Canadian Outdoor Hospitality Conference and Expo with a couple owners who were talking about they stock their store with local meats and steaks and things and novelties and eco-friendly things and local honey and whatever else, because what's happening is whether it's in Canada or the United States, you're seeing this trend toward, well, I can get that cheaper on Amazon, or I can get that cheaper on Walmart. It's been happening for years. But if you're able to offer something that's really unique, like you're talking about, Ryan, then they'll eat it up. Like they'll buy it, like the Petoskey stones, for example, right?
We stayed at one of our our customers in December in Alabama, and we went down to their camp store, and they actually sell hamburger and steaks from cows that they raise, and so they have their own. They also have cattle, and so they sell that. So there's nothing more local than that. And then I know in our area, a lot of the campgrounds will stock local wines, and I always think that's a really good good way to give help with the community, because campgrounds are always dealing with community issues, right? In terms of if they're trying to expand or anything like that, and so the more you work with the community, the better you're going to have that rapport.
Totally.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And I mean, that builds, like you're saying, it builds rapport. We've talked about partnerships with local area people before who can recommend your campground and vice versa and things like that. Offers a more curated experience to people. As more people get into glamping and they expect some of the things that they're coming from the hotel industry, that concierge-like service, whether it's just on your website or whether it's a flyer you hand out over the counter or whatever about, here's the local restaurants that are good, maybe stay away from that one without saying it, those kinds of things. Just help your guests have a better overall experience and appreciate your park more.
Yeah, I think it's interesting to note that these strenuous circumstances we've all faced in the last couple of years have really forced operators to think outside the box and do new stuff that, before we just kind of maybe we're on a little bit of autopilot and we're doing stuff because it worked and had been doing it however long. And so I like this idea that you take this negative of having a couple empty spots in your store and pivoting to brainstorm and find a solution that arguably might do better for you than the way you used to always do it, which I really like.
Well, that's the thing. Nobody likes competition, right? Because competition kind of makes you, pivot and adapt and go 90 miles an hour trying to figure out alternative solutions and ways to be better. But ultimately, competition, in most cases, brings out the better side in us. We look for new supply chains and new resources and new things to stock our store and new amenities, and ultimately that elevates not only our revenue potential or your revenue potential as a campground owner, but the guest experience too, and it makes everybody better.
We have a viewer on LinkedIn commenting too that it's better for both the local community and the environment. So certainly, carbon footprint stuff is a big factor there when you're kind of prioritizing products that are made local and all of that. So, and arguably, there's lots of guests out there who are prioritizing making purchases like that. So that stuff is.
Well, I'm one of them. For years I've eaten organic and grass-fed and local and whatever else, right? And so I remember I was telling the story during the conference. I went to a local restaurant in Banff National Park last year, and we would have eaten there anyway. It was a little hotel or a restaurant inside a hotel, but on their wall they had a plaque that said all the little farms that they get their stuff from. And again, I was eating there already. It was good food regardless, but just seeing that sign there kind of made me appreciate, not only appreciate, but almost value the stuff higher than I would have before, knowing that they intentionally source it from these places. So, absolutely. I don't know. I was expecting somebody to pick up and carry the conversation, but I can continue to pivot.
Well, I had a delay.
You said it. You said it all.
Yeah.
I never say it all.
Yeah,
I just blab until somebody else says something smart.
So I'm interested too. I had a ton of great feedback. I'm doing a little bit of a pivot here, I guess, now that we're on this carbon footprint thing. But we had a panel session during the conference specific to green strategy implementation. And I unfortunately didn't get to see all of it. But Brian, you were there. Do you have any takeaways specific to that, this topic from that session?
To be perfectly honest, the big thing that we talked about was the electric pedestals, right? And I'm remiss to say that CCREC is advocating this with the Canadian national government to create kind of a network of electric pedestals across Canada. And what did you say? It was you had applied for $5 million, Cara? And so that's super cool and innovative from an association standpoint. That kind of blows me away, even with how much I know CCREC is being innovative. And but the pedestals is the big thing. And Ryan, you know this from being a almost KOA franchise still. But KOA partnered with that company, and I can't remember his name. He was on the session. His name's Josh. I can't remember the name of his company, Cara, if you remember. Oh no, he's from Jamestown Advanced Products. I'm sorry. Yeah, he's from Jamestown Advanced. And so they partnered with KOA and created this really cool electric pedestal. And so he's talking about this, and he's saying like we're going to have it. It's going to be certified. You know, it was last Friday, so hopefully he got a certification. But we're going to be able to ship to campgrounds. And I'm thinking in my head, like, this is a $5,000 or $10,000 pedestal. And he's like, no, we work with KOA. We got all the costs down. It's reliable. It's like $1,200 because KOA didn't want anybody to have an excuse of like, I don't want one of these because it's too expensive from an ownership standpoint. And so that's the big thing. Like, electric vehicles are coming, whether we like it or not. And that we've discussed that on the show before, right? The power problems and things like that at campgrounds. But the ability to have a solution like this is, and whether you just put it on a site and you upcharge for that site and you have kind of an eco-friendly 4 or 5 sites or whatever you do with it, it's a really cool way to market and to cut down carbon emissions and to attract those guests who are conscious of those things.
Do you remember any of the specifications for that pedestal, like how they're managing it, what amperage it runs to and things like that?
I don't remember. Like, I remember him saying like I think the initial pitch that he had made was that you can run it with a 50 amp line. Like, you don't need increased, like you don't need a 100 amp line or not a line, but an outlet or whatever else. And again, I'm ignorant with a lot of this electrical stuff, right? So excuse my not knowing what I'm talking about. But he did say to future proof, like you're developing a campground right now, you should just lay multiple 50 amp lines. Right. And then even if they don't come out to an outlet right now in your pedestal, at least they're there. And so then you can have like your regular electric pedestals side by side with an electric charger that's next to each other instead of all in one unit. And obviously that'll evolve and change over time. But he made it seem like it wasn't like it could be powered by the existing infrastructure and lines. You just might need another 50 amp line running to it, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I'm actually working on something I've been working on with another manufacturer, which is funny that you bring this up, is kind of coming up with a prototype. There's actually a company, because a lot of this, like what you're talking about, that's hundreds of thousands of dollars to run new lines. And, what's going to end up happening is these F-150 Lightnings are going to be rolling into our properties and want to supercharge their F-150 while their Airstream's plugged in. And so we've actually created, how do I do this? It's called the Powergate. And there's actually a company that makes these.
The guy was there at our show. Yep.
Yeah.
He's awesome. So he's a friend of a friend, and he created this, and I kind of pitched it to Sun Communities because I'm like,
right on.
You spend, there's like $18 a piece for these. All it's going to take is one F-150 to plug in, and it is going to burn all the wires all the way back to your transformer. And, wire is what, $7 a foot right now. So, okay, you spend, the first $5,000 to outfit your whole park with these, and they can only plug into either the 30 amp or the 50 amp. Because right now they have the ability to plug into both, and it's a no-brainer for me. I'm like, it'd be crazy not to buy this product, at least until we come up with whatever the next solution is.
Long-term solution, I don't disagree with you at all, and I think they pair very well with each other as complementary products, and even long into the future. I forget the exact scenario we were talking about, but the guys were literally on the same panel going back and forth with how, like, even after there's widespread adoption of electric pedestals, that product is still useful to gate and control power consumption. So it's an interesting future, but that's a lot of, it's like you're a kid and you touch the hot stove and you don't realize what it is until you touch it and learn. And so I think some cases there are going to be a lot of campgrounds who adopt this very early on, but there are also going to be some who have to have their wire burnt before they realize what $18 could save them in this case, right?
Yep.
I don't know. What else we got? I don't even know what time it is. I can't see because of the screen in front of me. 40 minutes? Wow, we killed 40 minutes with me blabbing on about stuff?
It's pretty
surprised by that?
I mean, maybe.
Leslie,
I'm trying to have this show have actually useful dialogue, so I prefer I just shut up.
Yeah, shut up. Leslie is in the comments saying her concerns are staffing, managing ever-increasing costs, doing my best to provide a reasonably priced experience to folks looking for more and more in their camping experience. So Leslie owns a park here in Alberta, just east of Calgary, where Brian and I are. Those are valid concerns, I think, especially as the season starts.
Yeah, staffing it's all over, right? And we talked about this a little bit during the conference too. There's no real good solution for it because it's not just campground owners. It is everybody, every small bit. It's me, right? Like I'm having trouble staffing people. And so I've told Joe this and a few other people, like we actually had to go overseas for some of our talent because I literally can't find anybody in the United States or Canada who has the skills that I need, regardless of what I'm willing to pay for them. They just don't exist. And so I know that's obviously that opportunity doesn't exist for campground owners who need people in their store and in Yogi Bear costumes and things like that, right? But it's a big challenge, and I don't know, like because it's hard. You can't just continually raise pay and raise benefits and things like that, especially when you're only open half the year. And I don't know. I don't know what the answer is. Ryan, any suggestions, tips?
I've got
Has Sun
lots of
figured out a
ideas.
way to kind of source talent from different places, or?
I've got a lot of ideas in my head. I don't know how to make them work. A majority of kind of what I was trying to do at KOA was create activities that did not require staffing. So a lot of my events, were all available at all times, but it didn't require somebody to step in and host the event. Obviously, that's kind of out the window now, but something that we've kind of created at Sun is called the destination team, which is a full-time position. So I think I've actually talked about it on here a little bit, where like the work camper position that works 6 months in the north and then works 6 months on a different property in the south, and it works for properties that have multiple. But it basically turns a part-time employee with no benefits into a full-time employee with benefits, and they're pre-trained before they arrive and before they go. Is it perfect? No, it still needs some work, but it's a good start to start building a pretty good bench of work campers. Because I think even the work camper game is changing. Like,
yeah,
the work campers I was hiring back, 8 years ago don't exist. They're hard to find. They're a diamond in the rough. Yeah, I've got lots of ideas, but I don't know how to put them into words. So,
well, I think that what you're talking about on a surface level is a very good idea, is to figure out ways that you can avoid staffing someone where you maybe don't need them. And yes, I think part of what correct me if I'm wrong, part of what you're talking about is like during COVID, right? We had those events, activities, and things that you didn't necessarily need staff for, or by requirement couldn't have staff for.
Right.
But and some of those still don't work today. Now, obviously, now everybody's back in person, wants to do all the things, but there are still some things that you can do that you can have available, like scavenger hunts and bingo games and whatever else. There are ways that you can cut down on your call volume by utilizing technology like live chat or frequently asked questions on your website, or having those answers with a chat bot, or communicating better to your guests via email or in your reservation confirmation or whatever. All of that stuff, if it saves 2, 3, 4 phone calls even a day, if that's it, that's more time that your staff can focus on other things that you need them to do around the store.
Yeah, one of the couple things that we're doing, like I see like Indeed and stuff coming up, and we are posting that, and even going to college dorms or college places, like, hey, we got a cool job for you, and kind of an internship deal. But what we've actually started doing, at least at my park, and it's not cheap, and I don't always recommend it for everybody, but even like housekeeping, like cleaning cabins, we have 30 new cabins, and I know for a fact that I will not be able to hire any type of housekeeping this year. And so I've already worked deals with our local cleaning companies, and like, hey, every time this cabin flips, you're going to make this much money. And not only is it good for the community because you're making them quite a bit of money, you can almost build it into the rates, where it's hard, you are going to lose some of your profit. But at the same time, like, you're creating that standard that's so high, that's like, this outside company is cleaning it and I can hold them to this standard, and this is all they have to worry about. They're not going to get called on the radio to come help wear a Yogi Bear outfit. Literally their job is to clean this cabin and make it look the same for John as it is for Susan, as it is for Larry. And that way I know my cleaning standards are on point. So all I have to worry about is, okay, now I have to staff activities, if the park's cleanliness is at the correct standard, and all you have to worry about is doing these crazy cool activities that the kids are like, this is incredible, and the mom's like, it was clean, you've got a guest for life. Those are the two most. No one cares that they didn't have your favorite flavor of ice cream. If the park's clean, and the mom's happy, and the kids are happy that they're running around like crazy kids, you're set.
I think that re-strategy stuff is really important and valuable. Leslie's saying we are choosing to go with more automation and reducing office hours. Groundskeepers have had to learn how to check people in before taking them to their sites. So similar to Ryan, sounds like kind of re-strategizing how your staffing needs to look. Look at all these comments.
Well, I do have, and I know Jacob's. We'll get to Jacob's comment in 1 second. Before we do that, and I think the answer is no right now, Ryan. But is there a point in time where, and I don't think it's here yet, where things like Roombas and things like that become viable alternatives to at least do a quick pre-cleaning run, so it doesn't take a human being as much time to go into a cabin? And obviously not having one in every single unit, right? But if you have this 50 of the same exact type of cabin, and it can lay it out, and you can just drop it in there and hit clean, and it thinks it's in the same cabin, right? They're smart. They avoid objects. Like there's a new one that came out from a company called Roborock I was looking at the other day that mops at the same time, like actually scrubs, like does a good job. So is there a time, and I don't think it's yet, but is there a time where these things can replace some staffing time, not necessarily staff completely, but the time?
I've always thought about, like, if I was going to build the perfect cabin, it would be like all the bathrooms that they have in like San Diego, and like after every 3 turns, it shuts down and sprays everything down and then reopens. It's like, wow, this is beautiful. I don't think it's possible right now with any of the technology we have, because, one guest comes in and they use the cabin very lightly, and it's pretty clean, and you're like, okay, this is nice. And, there's still weird things in the couch cushions that the vacuum won't catch. And then the next guest brings his 16 husky dogs with him, and like you literally suck a vacuum of dogs out, and you're like, oh man. And how do you do that in a pre-clean? But How do you build that? Like, I don't know.
It's not going to completely replace the human ever, because everybody's different, right? But if you can get one that, like these new ones, oh, my thing's smoking again. If you can get one of these ones that auto empties itself and goes back, like at least there's, what I'm talking about is just saving even 15 or 30 minutes moving cabin to cabin right now. Right. And I don't know, maybe it's not possible, but.
Well, Ryan was talking about sourcing things like housekeeping. I mean, depending on your park, obviously, but a lot of parks that we would go to on our travels, instead of them having food services there, they hire food trucks for the busy hours, right? And so the food trucks come in, again, you're not worried about staffing them. They're in charge of that. They're worried about that. And you can always go find another one if that's necessary. There's other opportunities for things like that where you can, like renting bikes or renting kayaks or canoes or something in that area. It's another thing that you might have an outfitter near you that can source those. And so your services don't have to man it. You just, give them the contact information they need to get that, and form a partnership with an outfitter. And again, it's just one less thing you have to man, have to keep an inventory if you're worried about sourcing concerns with that side as well.
Right.
And teach them how to maintain it. And that's always the hard part, is like the chain pops off. You're like, it's fine. It's really easy to put it back on. You're like, oh no, it's not. You got to fix it. So
yeah, we have a few customers that partner with a company to rent e-bikes, and I'm not sure how this company does it, but because they're very dispersed. It's not all in a local area, but they go to their website, rent it. It's all done through there, and the campground just keeps it on stock. And so they just take them and bring them back. So the campground really doesn't have to do much, but the company is in charge of all the maintenance and keeping it up to date and everything.
Here in Calgary, we have and this is probably a common thing. We have a couple of companies, I think, that do sports like rental equipment, and they have like a trailer full of stuff, and you just literally via an app order which things you want, and they bring them to you. I think it would be genius for a campground to partner with somebody like that. And connect them with their guests so that they can kind of mean, they've got everything from like rollerblades and bicycles and kayaks and skis and snowboards and all of this stuff. And then they just come pick it up. Like they orchestrate all of that with the individual, which I think is such a great idea. Holy, there's so many comments in here now. Look at this audience.
Sorry, we didn't get to Jacob's. Do you want to put his up again real quick? Or?
Well, which one? We're full of them.
There's so many.
Oh.
Jacob's got a lot of.
Jacob says active recruiting is key. Students are always last minute when looking for jobs. Post on university job boards. They are free and a great resource.
Well, sometimes they're free.
He also says posting on Indeed isn't enough, which I agree. I think people are getting more strategic and targeted about where they're seeking.
I use LinkedIn to hire for everything. I mean, obviously that's different, right? Depends on the industry you're in and who you're looking for and the type of talent. But yeah, I mean, universities sometimes are free, but like not always. It depends on what they're doing. They really want the internship, the experience, the college, not credit, but you understand what I'm saying.
Totally. This is a cool idea. Partner with a local high school for early dismissal work training like we do in Texas. Love that idea.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Like it's the interesting thing is it's a lot of work, right? It's we can partner with that high school, but how do we make sure we're getting the good kids? Not that there's bad, that was a whole other argument, right? How do we get the kids who really want to work versus the kids that are just working because they have to?
We actually did that last year. I called up the local high school IT department or the computer science teacher, I guess, for all intents and purposes, and talked to him about, who would be a good student to have that I could have just to kind of work with them. It was more so kind of giving back to them. And they weren't going to end up doing a lot of good stuff for us, but just helping out with the school. But then it's also going to be a good student because that's the one the teacher is going to recommend, and that actually worked out pretty well. So maybe in the terms of a campground, maybe working with some of the coaches for sports teams that are off-season sports that they don't have practices all summer and stuff like that, because they're going to give you their good kids. They're not going to give you the slackers that aren't going to do anything.
Fair point.
No, I agree. Leslie's saying for your activities, you can put scavenger hunts on Joe's app. Yay, Joe.
First of all,
it would work.
And Rose's app. Let's not forget
That's
Rose
right.
But yeah, good idea.
We cannot forget Rose. She's the brains behind that whole operation.
But there are things like that, right? Like you look at a concierge service. I've often wondered this, right? And it enhances the guest experience, and maybe you do like food service or things like that. But we have to talk about Uber Eats and DoorDash, and up here we have Skip the Dishes and things like that. If somebody can be on staff, but you're not paying them, and maybe they only work for tips or something like that, or whatever that minimum wage is, if you can get like you pay a waitress type deal, right? And then on top of that, she gets her tips. Again, I'm not arguing that business model is fair to waitresses or anything like that, but if it works for you, maybe that's something where they can go out and get groceries and marshmallows and things from your store and bring them to the site. Maybe by doing all of those things together, you create a better experience. You can raise your rates, and you don't have to necessarily pay that person more than you normally would. Yeah,
absolutely. Jacob's got a cool idea here. In Alberta, our wildfire force gets thousands of applicants, and they don't find out until March or April if they get the job. These are all very qualified people that don't get hired and are looking for spots. So when you do post jobs, use the same tags that they use on their postings. Getting some easy exposure just from piggybacking off of posts. I do like that idea. That's fascinating to me.
Yeah, that's long been a marketing strategy, right? Piggyback off the other people's Instagram posts or Instagram hashtags, Twitter hashtags, Facebook hashtags, those kinds of things. There's a balance there with being annoying with marketing, but specific to jobs, yes, it's a really good idea.
The timing with that specific one as well, because campgrounds are hiring in March and April, makes a ton of sense to suddenly all of these people were applying for a position and now don't have one. I think it's a great, fascinating idea. So many great comments in here, especially universities now often go back to class before the Labor Day weekend now. So then we are short-staffed for the last weekend of the year. COVID was actually helpful that way, as some of my students were doing online learning. Sorry.
So we can give them, just cut off.
and meetings. Yeah, that was an issue I often had back in my campground ownership days too. The kids who were in school wanted to be done by early September, and I still needed staff for another 6 weeks typically. So that was a typical scramble for me. Here's my favorite comment so far.
This is my favorite episode.
Rose got a shout out. So if it's about her, she's happy.
Yeah. Yay. Hi, Rose.
Yeah, like it's very interesting dynamic, and I don't think we're going to get to the resource directory today, but that's okay. We had a great
5 whole minutes, man. 5 whole minutes.
Well, if you want to do the resource directory, we can.
It's up to you.
Go ahead, do the resource directory. You have anything else we want to talk about, Joe and Ryan, before we do the resource directory?
I'm pretty sure we could stay in the old staffing ring for about 4 more hours. So,
yeah.
So this is a drag to move pop-up that's in front of resource directory apparently.
Yes, wait. Sorry. It's killing me. I hate this thing.
This is what the back end of behind the curtain looks like for MC Fireside Chats. You can get a peek at it right now. See all the cool things that happen.
How about now?
There we go. So for those of you who don't know, this has been in our daily emails, and I think like 6,000 or 7,000 people get the emails or something in the United States and Canada or around the world really these days. But our staff spent 2 months putting together this kind of resource directory focused on literally everything you will need to know if you are building, operating, running facilities at, marketing, looking for services at a campground. And so you can see they're sorted there at the top, but they're literally, if you go into like facilities or operations, just pick one, Cara, they're literally sorted into every single potential category you would need to look for, from Wi-Fi to electric pedestals to sewer systems to water parks to play structures to whatever. And so if you are a supplier who's watching this show, like Jacob Marler, who's from EJH, and we love his glamping things, but don't like that he's an Oilers fan, but we'll still list him in the directory regardless, and have. It's a free listing. We want this to be the most comprehensive resource that is available to campground owners. So if you know a company, or you are a company who provides something in a specific vertical or category, we will list you no charge, for free, no catch, in as many categories as your business is actually relevant for, so that you can be here in front of people. And so that's kind of our goal, is to build this out. Obviously, there will be opportunities for some suppliers to have enhanced listings and sponsorships and things like that. But our primary goal is to create this amazing resource for park owners. We didn't see anything like that out there. So obviously, we're going to continue to improve it. Eventually, we want to be able to sort by, do you serve Canada or the United States or specific states or things like that, or all kinds of different things. So this is just version 1, but hopefully this will help some owners, especially as we move forward and there's much more interest in the industry. So anyway, that's the resource directory.
Yeah, you were worried about time?
I don't know. Maybe.
Ryan, I thought you were in charge of marketing.
Yeah.
Market your directory here.
I just
I'm
pretended
just burn down your house. That's all I care about.
I mean, I said what needs said, right? Like it's a directory. It's cool. It's for business owners. I feel like it's going to be helpful. Is it helpful, Ryan?
It's a great resource.
What do you think, Ryan?
I have I don't even know which way is up right now, so I have not had any time to look at it. And
in principle, right?
I'm also multitasking behind the screen. So as any good campground manager would do at this time of year, he just prays that he can see the sun at some point in the day.
Well, we talked about supply chain issues. So you might be able to see some other suppliers that have product that you need, just because it's getting down to crunch time and you don't have the time to order them. So that would be a perfect resource, because you're used to ordering from one person. And so now you might have more options out there.
Yep.
Yeah, I want to provide as much information as we possibly can on people. It's just a lot of work gathering all this stuff together. So we'll figure it out. We'll constantly improve it. Love to hear owners' feedbacks, things like that. Other than that, we got a couple minutes left. Anything you guys want to wrap up and talk about as we head into, probably won't see you guys again until April on the show?
Jacob wants to know if we're going to the Calgary Outdoor Adventure Show.
I'm not. Are you?
You're not? Yeah, I'm
Should
going
I?
to try to head over there on Saturday this weekend and check things out. I should be there. Why? Does Jacob have a booth there? Reach out
He
to
said
me.
he was going during the show. Yeah, one of the lounges one night he was going. So
Cool. That's awesome.
Jacob, by the way, we still need to finalize our bet. So Jacob and I have a bet on the Flames are going to go farther in the playoffs than the Oilers. So I just want to, every time I have a touch point with Jacob, I just want to remind him. I feel like he's going to try to weasel out of it because the Oilers might not even make the playoffs. My girlfriend was telling me this earlier. So I don't know. Like I just learned the whole point system for the NHL. I didn't even know it. So before I made the bet.
Jacob's offering you free tickets. How come I don't get free tickets?
Who's offering me free tickets?
Jacob is.
To who? The Oilers?
To the outdoor show.
Oh, the outdoor show. Okay.
Yeah. Oilers are on a heater. Yeah. Okay. Enough of that nonsense. I'm gonna go to the outdoor show. I hope to see anybody local to Calgary there this weekend. Hopefully, if you're there, connect with me. It's a super exciting time of the year for our industry right now. I am always kind of fired up and excited about the season changing and all of that stuff here. So can't wait to get into summer and have everybody's businesses kind of running and busy and all those things.
Yep, I'm really excited. I love we always have blue skies here usually in the winter during, in Calgary, but I'm really excited to start to see that tree fill out with leaves. It's a nice little crabapple tree and just be able to go outside and do more things. And so I'm looking forward to it, going camping, visiting some campgrounds. I think Cara and I might have some plans this summer to do some ambassadorship for CCRVC, for Insider Perks, travel around, do some live shows. It's going to be cool. We're going to do a live show from the Alberta Campground Owners Association meeting on March 30th. Is that our plan?
I don't know if I can fit that in. You can go ahead. I will be.
Nobody wants to see me. They only watch for you.
I'm the executive director. I'm running the meeting. I cannot also podcast.
We'll just broadcast. We'll just mic your thing in, and we'll just do a live for an hour. We can just hear you. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure that's a fascinating episode.
Thank you guys for joining us for another episode of MC Fireside Chats. Really appreciate it. Looking forward to an amazing camping season. We will see you on this specific show for Campground Owners again in April. Next week, remember, is our RV industry show. Got a bunch of people on from RVDA, Canada, America, CRV, Shane Devonish, Eleanor Ham, Phil Ingrassia, a bunch of other people I can't remember right off the top of my head. But Joe, have a fantastic season working with campgrounds. I'm sure you're going to be traveling a little bit. Hopefully you continue to grow your company. Ryan, have an amazing summer as Yogi Bear's Jellystone Park of Petoskey. Is that what it is? It's so long. I know we have to say it right or we get fined.
Rolls off the tongue.
It's Jellystone. Yeah, I don't even know. I'm not even gonna try. Jellystone Petoskey.
I can probably get away with not being fined, but you probably can't. So
yeah.
But we'll go with it. Anyway, somewhere in there's a little R with a circle around it, just so you guys know. Anyway, let's have a super great season. Wish you all the best, and we will see you guys next month.
Thank you.
Next week for every industry. Take care, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks for watching this episode of MC Fireside Chats, hosted by Brian Searl and Cara Csizmadia. Have a suggestion for a future show or want to see your campground or company as part of an episode? Email us at hello@moderncampground.com. Join us next week for another episode. And don't miss the latest outdoor hospitality news and commentary from around the world at moderncampground.com.